That was great.
Was that jazz?
No, it was classic rock.
What was that?
Classic rock. Welcome back to part 2 of Doug and Pat Return. Yes, we have returned. We're going to do a continuation of our music store guys who brought the custom shop Les Pauls, and we're going to check them out. Sometimes it just seems like one guitar is a little bit better than the other. Yeah, so we're going to go back to those guys, and then we're also going to do a part of a series that we want to get into a little bit, not so much guitar pickups, but amplifiers. Wow. We want to kind of compare vintage amplifiers to amplifiers that are kind of cloned of them, like what we did with the Henry amplifier back there, SRT Plus. So we will be doing a comparison between the Victoria amplifier that is basically a clone, according to their website, of a 1957 Gibson GA-40, which is, we're big fans of the GA-40 series. Up to post 62 or so, they changed the circuitry completely after that. Right. But up till then, those guys are definitely really, really comparable, in some ways even better in their own way, to the Tweed Fenders. They're just great. And so they have two 6V6s, so they're really sort of like a deluxe. But they have their own sound to them.
And all the different variations through the 50s of them.
Yeah.
And configurations that, they're all 112 type of thing, but they all sound great. I mean, in their own way.
They do.
Some the early ones aren't as gained up as the 58, 9, whatever.
60, yeah. But you can just turn them up more than that, 5189 tube that they use in the preamp, one for each channel. One of the channels has a tremolo in it, and one of them doesn't. One's a little brighter, etc. 2 channels, 1 master tone control. We had actually done a show on the GA-40s, so you can reference that back. But we wanted to hear the Victoria because they said it was comparable to and based on the 1957 GA-40, which we happen to have a 1957 GA-40, so we ran it through its paces. Well, let's get on with it. Let's go back to the Gibson guys, the music store guys, and let's carry on with our demo.
All right.
So this one is the, can we say Jimmy Page thing?
Inspired. Jimmy Page inspired.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to pay the royalties on the actual...
No, because they made a Jimmy Page, and it's like 20 grand or something.
That's why you can't say that's what you're doing here. It's just inspired by the artist formerly known as Joff.
Yeah. The neck on this is a little bit flatter than like a 59. It's fast. It's not skinny this way. It's just a little bit thinner this way. It's a nice hybrid. Kind of feels maybe like early 60s, maybe, not later 60.
I think that was the intention. I think so.
Yeah. It's
really, a nice taper.
It's really great.
And the frets?
It has frets on it, and from the factory, I guess.
22.
They go all the way up.
20. Yeah.
They go almost up to the end of the fingerboard.
Yeah, we wanted to stop it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of doing the 24 frets and having a thing go
the installation of the 24th fret's really awkward on this guitar, it's just.
And here's the other thing that you probably don't realize is it's probably more historically accurate to do it like this.
Yeah, some would say.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where you guys are coming from and what you're selling here, because it's just, look at Pat's face. He's upset.
He's almost bit off the end of his pipe there.
That top does move around a lot.
It does, yeah.
can't make that work, then maybe you need to spend a little more time practicing.
I need to spend more time practicing. What do you think about like the open coil on that? Does it feel a little more open and responsive? That's kind of the idea of taking the cover off.
It's hard to say, but it does make a difference. I mean, I think that's pretty common. I mean, it changes character as you move around on it, and as you work with the volume control. These guitars, all guitars, get brighter when you bring the pot all the way up, so you can work with that as like. Also with if you're going to use both pickups, which is not that bad of an idea. Sounds like a great sounding Les Paul to me. Let's do another one. And here's another one with a Bixby on it. This has got a really nice, it's fun to look down on these guitars. I mean, not look down like metaphorically, actually physically look down on them and see the incredible
Look down
flame
at
on them.
them.
Yeah.
Gaze upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, so you spend, this guitar's got to be what, $2,000, $1,500, something like that?
Close.
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, a little,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you
With
just
the case is quite an upcharge.
That comes with the
Oh.
case.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you got to have a case.
Sure.
Well, you have to work it out with these guys. Anyway, let me get my little microphone not to do that, because when it does that, it makes bad sounds. This guitar's on fire.
You are on fire.
I will
That is-
give you $2,500 cash money. I don't need the case. It has more bloom to it, from what I'm hearing in the room. It's bloomy, it has more activity going on. Like that.
It's probably that one has the cream switch tip, and the other one was that's probably what it is.
That's got to cost you a little.
Yeah.
A little extra. Throw it in for you.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
No. No.
I thought you were my buddy.
You got to negotiate harder with this guy.
It's the 5-star promise. Yeah.
Strings are a little bit lower right in this area right in here, so it feels a little different. But the tone, can you guys hear that? It sounds different to me. Sounds like a great sounding Les Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear a great sounding Les Paul. That would mean, you know what I'm talking about. Oscar, the Beast, the 58. Up next. Gold top, is that what they call this?
Yeah, with a folk singer tuner
Oh,
in the
I'm
headstock.
so sorry. That's like, whoa. Let's start over again.
Rookie
All
era.
the
That's like
guitars.
holding the bat the wrong way.
Yeah,
It's just like
that's- you
It's
got
just
your
so- talk about the neck on this guitar. It's perfect. What's that mean, perfect? Shut up, what do you know? Can I get somebody to pull these inlays out of this guitar and put "Hi, I'm Doug from the Doug and Pat Show" and Mother of Pearl down the
We
neck?
can do that for you.
Yeah, actually,
Okay, do you wanna
we've
take
got
a
a guy.
picture?
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, you guys, I keep seeing online that you guys get all kinds of awards for your store. What have you gotten recently? I saw one that's the best store in the world.
That one was unexpected but incredibly flattering. But yeah, 2020 Dealer of the Year. So NAMM is the trade organization that oversees manufacturing, distribution, retail in the industry, and they every year pick a favorite store. And so yeah, for 2020 we got it, which is it's some amazing company to be in, because it's a small community. As vast as the music industry may seem, it feels like a small community. And so to have have your name amongst those peers is a huge honor.
Yeah,
So
it's cool.
so yeah, it's fun. We got our show.
Dealer of the
Yeah,
year.
they might notice the logo while they gaze upon.
It says "Dealer of the Year."
Right.
So
With
yeah,
an
there's-
IE.
with an IE, yeah, no. So that's been really fun. It's opened a lot of doors for us, and a lot of what we turned it into is advocacy for music education outside of even just trying to sell more guitars, which we of course are trying to do. But being able to, I think that has also opened the door to the conversation about production quality and shipping ETAs and designing some really neat things that come from an imagination that loves guitars.
It's a cool feather in your cap.
It is. It
in
is.
Your stocking cap.
In my stocking cap. Yeah, we got the beanie memo today,
Yeah.
so I'm ready to go. So
Yeah, wear it or don't show up. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you guys for having us on the show.
Yeah.
This is
Can
Super
we
cool.
come back?
Yeah, so we're going to make this a regular thing because they're our dealer guys. They're the guys at the music store. And so we will talk about Fender with them in the future, talk about different amplifiers that are reissue amplifiers. Maybe we can compare them with the original old amplifiers, stuff like that. Sort of real life, their life, not our life. Our life's not real. We have no life. And we can compare that stuff because they have the resources.
I've known him 50 years. He hasn't had a life in 50 years. I know him. Oh, you were saying?
Then I think I was. How old were you 50 years ago? So you
We
were
should
about
go
turning
before this
50, huh?
really.
This is going to be the comparison between the Victoria Electro King and the amplifier that it's modeled after or influenced by, which would be the 1957 Gibson GA-40. Now we did the show on the GA-40s because, just to be honest with you, we love those amplifiers. We think they're really special amplifiers.
Hi, Billy. We can't talk right now. We're in the middle of something really important. No? Yeah, well, don't worry. We'll let you come on the show one of these days. Yeah, no hurry. It's only been 10 years. Yeah, okay. Do you want to say anything, Doug?
Thanks a lot, Billy, for nothing.
Yeah. I'll talk to you later. Yeah, bye. Yeah, say hi to the whatever. Bye.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man.
Tell me.
One of these days. One of these days.
The Electro King. So Victoria makes a copy or an influence by the Gibson GA-40, and they specifically say in 1957. Actually, I'm going to read a little bit of the blurb that they've done on it here, and I'll just go ahead and read it.
Go ahead.
You guys don't have to read it with me. Like, when you used to say the Pledge of Allegiance in school and we all would say it together?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not going to do that. This is what Victoria has to say about the Electro King. The Electro King is an idealized recreation of the classic McCarty-era GA-40. Its circa 1957 circuit features two cathode-biased 6V6s for 15 watts of recording and small club power. The heart and soul of the Electro King is its 5879 preamp circuit, a single NOS 5879 input pentode for each of the normal and tremolo channels to provide rich distortion and natural tube compression at any volume setting. Notes seem to be blown out of the amp with overdriven tones that are saturated and dynamic and musical. Jeff Tweedy has his hands on one. Do you? I think that's a good description of what they do. Mm-hmm. So the reason that we're kind of doing this is because that there are companies that are recreating amplifiers as well as creating guitars. And we just kind of want to do the same thing we do with amps that we do with guitars, which is let's find out what they really did. For us, it's going to have to be about the tone. And because we're so fond of GA-40s, we're going to see if the Victoria Electro King does that. Also, we're going to take a look at it cosmetically, and we're going to take a look at it as far as the build. Is it a good quality build? Is it hand-to-hand, wired, point-to-point wiring, and all that? The GA-40, of course, the one we have, is a 1957. So we're going to do a little apples-to-apples comparison between the two. The speaker in the GA-40, the original one, is the original speaker, so it's real old. And the speaker that came in the Victoria is not the original one. So we're going to use a common speaker because we think that that's going to even the playing field, even though we can't duplicate the cabinet. So the GA-40 is redwood, and the Victoria is not redwood. I don't know what it is, pine or something like that. Mm-hmm. So what we are going to use for the speaker is going to be a silver Alnico Celestion G12. So it's going to be similar to what those amplifiers would have in 1957, which is the Alnico speaker. And we're going to run both of the amplifiers, not at the same time, of course, one at a time, into a single 12 cabinet with the G12 speaker, mic'd up with an SM57 recorded in Pro Tools.
What year is the speaker?
The speaker is 1966.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a real deal speaker. It's a good sounding speaker, and I think it's going to complement the sound of the amplifiers closer to what the original was, right? So the original one came with the Jensen speaker in it, Alnico. So let's run them both through an Alnico speaker, and then we'll talk after that about.
Is it him again?
Billy wants to know if you're mad.
No, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
How do you spell disappointed?
I don't know.
How about just I'll put an unsmiley face?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're going to start out with the original, the 1957 GA-40, and then we're going to go to the Electro King.
Okay.
Crank them up. So let's take a look at them cosmetically first. So the Victoria, as we said earlier, is going after, inspired by a 57 GA-40. So in order to be fair about it, this is a 57 GA-40. You can see that this cabinet actually isn't really based on a 57 GA-40 because after 56, see with this little white part here that kind of lines up with that white part? This is where it used to come down. This part came down there. But it's not really all that important. This is a great looking amplifier. The grill cloth looks good. The Tolex up here looks good. If it's not the same as this or same as the originals, to us probably it's not really that important so much as the build of the amplifier and of course the way that it sounds. This is not an inexpensive amplifier. This is a little over $3,000 retail. So we're going to see what it'll do. Let's turn them around. Okay, now we have the back off, and so we can see that the build that's in the back, meaning this circuit board, is point to point. So it matches up with this one, and it's not important to us as far as that it look exactly the same because if they're getting the circuit pretty close, but the main thing is that it's a quality build. The tubes, so the tube configuration is the same as what we have in the original, which is that they have the magic amplifier in this is these 5879s. They have one 5879 for each one of the channels. Same here. It has a 12x7 and it has a 6SQ7 in the original one. These are pretty much almost the original tubes here. It's a metal one. If you can get a glass bottled one, I'd get a glass bottled one. These metal ones can become microphonic. 6V6 outputs and a 5Y3 rectifier tube. So they look this part of it's good. Speakers. This amplifier did not come with this classic Alnico from Weber. It came with a Eminent speaker in it. But this speaker that's in here is 65 years old, and this is a Jensen P12P. We're not going to use either of these speakers today. We're going to plug them into a common cabinet so that we can do apples to apples on that, simply because these older speakers compared to a newer speaker, the speaker has so much to do with the tone that we have no idea what this one's been through. Let's plug them in. This is the 1957 GA-40. It has 2 channels, 4 inputs, not unlike a 410 Bassman. The top inputs are quieter than the bottom inputs, kind of like a lot of amplifiers, Marshalls and all that. The bread and butter of this amplifier, of course, is going to be the tremolo channel, and usually the loudest one. But we might start with plugging it into exactly the opposite that you think, which is the amplifier does say Les Paul on it, kind of like a jazz amplifier. So let's go with this volume. This is the volume that is for this channel. This is the volume that's for this channel. And instead of calling this tone like they have in the Victoria, they call it voicing. So we're going to put the voicing pretty bright because this amplifier is not really super bright. Let's hear what it sounds like in that channel. Let's play a little jazz on it because I know that Pat really likes that a lot. This is in the attenuated non-tremolo channel. Let's put it into the less attenuated input on that channel. Starting to get a little bit dirtier. Now we're going to come out of this channel and we're going to put it over down here into the tremolo channel, into the unattenuated output. That kicks us into this volume control right here. And we're going to put it on the same volume that the cleaner channel had, non-tremolo. So it's breaking up pretty well. This is the treble pickup. Guitar is almost all the way up, treble all the way up, and I'll make sure the voicing is all the way on as bright as it can go. The amplifier is real dynamic. You can back off with the pick and then hit it hard without changing the volume control on the amplifier, a lot like the Vox. So you hear when the guitar comes up, how the guitar gets brighter and the amplifier obviously gets brighter too. The guitars is now on 10, treble pickup.
Because it's a tremolo amplifier, let's hear the sound of it like that. So this is the, they call it the depth. That's how much frequency, which is how fast it goes through its cycle. Turn the switch on, which is made out of wood. Turn the frequency up. Turn the depth up. Pretty rich tremolo. They have a flat position in the middle on this amplifier called the voicing. Let's put it flat. Same thing, treble position on the Heritage. We're going to go to the normal channel. Volume halfway up. Tone control on 12. Much quieter. Guitars all the way up. Much cleaner. Much warmer, has a much more low end to it. Tremolo. Again. Depth control. Turning it up. Nice. Speeding up the speed of it. Tremolo off. With the tone control all the way to 12, so unlike the Gibson where they go to 10, this goes to 12. Kind of show-offy, I guess. Treble pickup, of course, on the Heritage. volume control. It is on 6, which is half a 12. I'm going to bring it up a little more, quite a bit cleaner, more headroom than the 57. I'm humming because I don't know the words. I got to say, I think that the Electro King sounded good. I think it sounded like a GA-40.
It did, especially on the high end for me anyway.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of that.
I don't think it sounded necessarily like a 57, though. I think it sounded more like a 56, which is maybe nitpicky a little bit, but, well, if you go to the GA-40 show, like I said earlier, we ran all those amplifiers. The 56 has that Tolex looks more like the Victoria.
Right.
And I think that because we cranked the Victoria quite a bit, that's what you have to do with a 56. Now you have a 60, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have a 58?
Yep.
Okay. So we have a 57, 58. Do you have 59?
Yep.
So those amplifiers are gained up,
Oh, yeah.
and they're loud.
And what do they all have in common, just cosmetically? The panel?
The panel is, on the front of it, or the top.
The top.
They're
The chrome panel guys.
the chrome panel guys. Yeah, and the 56 is the last year when they were painted brown. So that one you can tell that. They all have a similar sound to them, but the 56 doesn't sound like the 57, 58, 59, 60. Those amplifiers are louder and gained up.
Yep.
But the overall tone is very, very similar. As the player playing the heritage guitar with those ambers, I thought that the original one had more personality to it myself. I thought it had two elements about it that the Victoria didn't have. I think that it had more character of this kind of ZZ Top first album sound, especially in the vibratos, but in the character of those notes. And it really got interesting on the low notes. And we were only on 4. We had the Victoria up to, I think, 9. And it got this, I think that Jack White would probably like an amplifier like that. It just was breaking up sort of like out of control. I thought the Victoria was much tighter, sort of sounded a little more Marshall-y, like tighter Marshall. But I thought both of those amplifiers sounded really, really good. Builds were similar.
Maybe after a period of time, it'll loosen up.
Good point. Good point.
Because it is a brand new amplifier. So
yeah, one of the amplifiers is 65 years old. So the question would have to be asked, those components, do they change?
Yeah.
Values, do they drift over the years? I think people can weigh in on that. The filter caps hadn't been changed, I don't think, in quite a while in the 57, although it wasn't really that noisy. But so you're dealing with an amplifier that's 65 years old and an amplifier that's, I don't know, I think
a year, whatever.
5 or 6 years old. That amplifier, thank you very much, Ernie Pascuzzi, for loaning us that amplifier. It's his. So that was really great. Well,
cool.
Good demos.
Good.
I was watching YouTube, and one of my favorite guys, which I mentioned before, is Tom Bukovac, who does these interviews from time to time, besides being a great player and session player, and he does filming where he's in his recording sessions. It's really great if you're a musician and into those insights, because they're fabulous. He did an interview with George Gruen, and I know that you saw George Gruen when you went to Nashville. George Gruen has been actually around
for quite a long time, and this interview with him is gold. It's absolutely gold. Talks about the market, vintage guitars. And this George Gruen guy, he knows more than anybody. Everything from banjos made in the 20s, Martins guitars, vintage, everything. Electrics, acoustics, lap steels. And it's a fabulous interview, and you guys need to go and find it. It's long. It's about a little over an hour. Bukovac he beat us to the punch on this, which kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, we'll talk to him about that when we go back there sometime.
Because that's what we were talking about doing, is going to Nashville, and that would be one of the stops we would make, would be George Gruen. But until we do that, you guys can go and hear that interview. But it kind of got me curious, because I have guitar players from the past, guitar player meaning the guitar player of the magazine. And George Gruen had an article in here.
That guy's a pretty good picker himself, right?
He's pretty good. This is called George Gruen American Guitar, and it's collectors. And he comments on some things that could be timely now. This is one from October of 1979, right? So really, we're going, what, 79, 44 years ago. I thought I'd read a couple things that he said from even back then. He goes, he's talking about vintage guitars and the market for vintage guitars in '79. And he goes, the demand for vintage rock and roll electric guitars in particular tends to be fad-oriented and somewhat erratic. To some extent, this will all tend to limit the prices to which vintage guitars, particularly the rock and roll guitars, will rise. I don't think we'll be seeing the day of a $100,000 vintage rock guitar anytime soon. The fact that he said that we would see one, though, is interesting, because how much could you buy a burst for in 1979?
Mm-hmm.
Like $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 for a really, really good one?
Yeah, boy. Right into there.
Okay. He also says in this article, I also think too much attention has been paid to the prices of only a few select models. On the electric guitar market, these would be Sunburst Gibson Les Pauls, Dot Inlay ES335s, Priest EBS Fender Strats, and Tellys, and perhaps precision basses. These 5 models are most popular today, and they may not be so important 5 years from now, and they certainly don't compromise the entire market. 79. This is a year later, in November of 78. And an interesting thing is, now in 1978, we see there's an article about Eddie Van Halen. So their first album was just out. Here's a picture of the boy right here, 21. Yeah. This is what Gruen had to say in 79. He's talking about the guitar industry, that people say it isn't what it used to be. He goes, highly skilled, cheap labor is a thing of the past, and modern economic realities dictate that the manufacturers produce guitars as quickly as possible using available labor and materials. In addition, many guitar companies today are owned by corporate conglomerates and managed by business people who know very little about the products. Who's he talking about? He's talking about Norland.
Yep.
He's talking about CBS. He's talking about the companies back in '79 that had purchased the great American classic golden era guys. So he talks a little bit more about the market in general, because people are asking him to forecast the future. And Bukovac actually does that too when he's asking him in 2022. Here's what he says in 78. I think we've pretty well answered the question of whether a guitar made today is likely to be a collector's item in 20 years. It depends on the quality of the guitar as well as its suitability for the music of the future, a difficult area which to make predictions. I don't think there have been any significant improvements in the design of the acoustic guitars since 1934 for flat tops and 39 for arch tops. He says the same thing in his article with Bukovac. Mm-hmm. I don't think you'll find any mandolins that will exceed the Gibsons made in the 20s and even before, or any banjos that will be better than the Gibsons Vegas and Bacon's better than the Gibsons. The economic situation today, the diminishing supply of good wood and other materials, and the decline in craftsmanship make it unlikely that these great classics will be equaled or improved upon. I also have the same opinion about collector's item electrics of the 50s and 60s, although it's possible that recent developments in electronics may eventually change the whole idea of what a good electric guitar is. He goes on to say that they're faddish. He goes, synthesized guitars started there. He goes, it's going to depend on those instruments maintaining their popularity, not going real popular and then declining. That's spot on the money. You know, like the MIDI guitars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That was going to be the future. Bursts weren't going to be as collectible. Strats, you know, Blackguard tellies, dead on the money. Watch that interview. It's really, really great. In it, he says, to finalize this, he talked about how well instruments are made, and they talked about instruments that were made now, and the makers of them who made them really, really good. But he says, but, and I think this is great, well made doesn't mean that it sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to thank Jeremy and Joff for coming on the show, bringing us the Les Pauls, talking about all that stuff that's going on with Gibson now, which is relative to the comments that we just made before that.
Jeremy and Joff.
You tell
and
me.
Jeep.
Huh?
All three of them.
No.
Then-
Who wasn't here?
Oh.
Pop quiz.
Back to the Bukovic thing. The thing that I really liked about that interview is that it was very informal. It was like guys sitting around talking about guitars, which I'm sure you guys do when you're talking with 2 or 3 of your buddies and
That's right.
talk about guitars and sounds and amplifiers and things like that. And it was very relaxed, and he asked the right questions. He didn't ask the typical,
Typical anything.
stupid questions.
Yeah.
You know, he asked some really, really pertinent questions, and I was very impressed. Which takes a lot to impress me.
I know. You're hard on most people, just vicious.
Yeah.
You troll them a lot. You ought to even use that as your email.
Yeah, and and then Jeff and Joff and Jeep and Jeremy and Jesus and all those people over there, they all have J names, and
yeah,
you
you
have
know
to
so.
have a J name to work there. But they're really, really good people, really good store, super inventory, and easy to work with.
Yeah.
And,
They're like the old days stores.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
They're all guitar players, aren't they?
That's right,
And
the
they teach
musicians.
guitar and all that stuff like that.
Yep.
Lastly, on the Bukovac thing, Tom obviously knows those people really well, and he knows them really well.
Mm-hmm.
That conversation that he had with those is definitely among friends.
Yeah.
And it was very, very candid, and that's so rare. So I think that we should recommend that people should see that show.
Should see that show. George Gruen is, in my opinion, a national treasure. He knows more about everything guitar-wise than, he knows things that he shouldn't know. And, Doug knows a lot about certain things, but...
Like working on high-end automobiles.
That's right.
Tuning Ferraris and Porsches.
Like working on guitars with screwdrivers. We won't go there.
No, that was an accident.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Well, that's you tell that.
You got what you could for the guitar. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but yeah, George is George is something else.
He's a treasure. He's a treasure, and it's obvious there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our show for today. Let's talk about our website people could go to at thedougandpatshow.com. We have the store there. We have Chasing Oscar, where we compare a lot of different pickups to each other, playing the same song by the same player, me, recorded exactly the same, kind of interesting thing. In our store, you can buy the Doug and Pat Show attire. One example would be the T-shirts, long sleeve, like I'm wearing here with the small logo. Short sleeve, available in small logo and large logo. We have the Doug and Pat Show hats. And as a special bonus right now, we're offering free of charge with each order a Doug and Pat Show button
Nice.
at no additional charge. We've had some interesting people send us photos. We have a good friend of ours here in Portland, Mike Osborne, who used to be the lead guitar player with John Lee Hooker. And this is a picture of him or a little film of him in Nashville, playing with his buddy Robin Ford. And of course, Michael is wearing the correct attire for that. We also had a guy who is, I think he's based out of New York. He goes to Beirut and does research there with a team, and this is a photo of him in his Doug and Pat Show hat. Guy in Australia, a picture of him with his son, both guitar players. Look at, he's got the TV set up there with some of our favorite albums.
That's a great picture.
So yeah, you know, the really good thing before we leave is the fact that I really don't have to deal with hearing about the one that shall remain nameless anymore on this show. I just don't want to hear about it anymore. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, something I kind of wanted to do was mention, as you know, we don't endorse anything and get paid for it. The pickups that we get, we don't get any money off of those. We don't get any money off of our show, advertising-wise, anything. At least I don't.
Yeah,
You
one
know,
out of two ain't bad.
That's why he's driving a Mercedes and I'm driving a Volkswagen. Not that Volkswagens are bad. But
No,
anyway.
no, watch what you say. So what's the point of all this
Well,
stuff?
the point of it is that, I like spicy food.
Oh.
And I like hot sauce. I like Mexican food. I like Thai food and all that.
Well,
And
got one of them iron stomachs.
I do. And I ran into a hot sauce that is being made that it's not only hot, but it tastes good. You know, a lot of them are just hot. You can't taste the food. This stuff is good. And it's called Whisker Bomb hot sauce. And
What are those guys? Is that some kind of a hillbilly on there?
it's a guy named, his name is Tim Montana.
Oh, Tim Montana.
He's good player and a great singer.
Who's the other guy?
Well,
Hang on a second.
Did I have my?
Hang on a second.
Oh, I guess I might have had my fingers covering that guy.
Is that the one who shall remain nameless?
It is.
And
It
we're
is.
endorsing the one who shall remain nameless.
Yeah.